Welcome to the Crimeycade. I'm the mad conservative crime fighter, Stephen Lucas, former Gamer of the Year, former 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge national champion, and we're back another week on the Crimeycade podcast, and we're up to episode 57. Well, not gonna dally too long here. Let's get this up here. Oh, it's not one to pop up here. Here we go. Get this. And we already have somebody trying to crash the stream. Get up here, little boy. Well, he thinks he wants to get up here. Cody's ready to crash the stream. He's right under my feet crying. Anyway. Got the wrong thing up on the screen. All right. Anyway, episode 57. And last week we had Brian Cullen, creator of one member of the Midway Monsters group. He created many of the games from the back in the day, or at least the artwork and Rampage and Arch Rivals, Xenophobe, Pigskin, and others. And this turkey's still crying his eyes. Here, you want your screen time, boy. You want your screen time. Here's your screen time, Cody. Yes, you think you're the star of the show. You think you are. Yes, you think you are. And now you're lunging for my face trying to bite it off. Well, guess what? You get to leave. And you get to deal with this when you misbehave. Anyway. Get this back up on the screen. This again. Brian Cullen was the guest last week. If you haven't watched this interview, go back and listen to it. We cover a lot of ground that normally isn't covered. Brian Cullen's done a whole ton of panels all across the country, other podcasts, but we cover stuff that regularly doesn't get covered and cover things that don't get the attention they should. And it was a fun interview to do, and I encourage you to go back and see it. Anyway, I have a Facebook page. I need 100 followers. If you can give me a follow, if you're watching me on Twitch and have a Facebook account, follow facebook.com/Crimeycade, updates on the podcast and other stuff that I can't share or don't have time to share here will get posted over there. I encourage you to do it. All right, let's get started. And I have to lead off with some not so pleasant news. And apparently I'm the first streamer to cover this because I haven't seen anybody else do it yet. Some really bizarre behavior on Facebook from the true King of Kong. Billy Mitchell and Steve Weeby fought over the title of King of Kong in that documentary so many years ago. Well, there's an actual king of Donkey Kong, the classic arcade game. And the current holder of that record is Robbie Lakeman. And these shots here were back from a number of years ago. But he's been posting on Facebook lately, and some of the posts he's made recently have drawn some concern, at least in my book. Somebody else, Catherine DeSpirita, has stepped up and expressed concern as well. And if you don't know who Catherine DeSpirita is, it's another prominent member of the gaming community, the classic gaming era. And she was one of the people sounding the alarm bells of one Rudy Ferretti, who was engaged in really bizarre behavior, cutting very nasty promos online and just not really having much respect for women in general, and everything. Despite all the warnings, she and Patrick Scott Patterson, PSP, was setting an alarm. Hey, this guy was engaged in guys doing very destructive behavior. You need to do something. You need to step up and do something. Well, Rudy Ferretti, if you didn't know, committed suicide and murdered his girlfriend on the way out. Was on one of the trading cards, one of the first year's trading cards, and it was just a mess. It's just, it was a horrible tragedy. Well, Catherine Desperta is worried that Robbie Lakeman may be on that same path because he invoked Rudy's name in one of his previous Facebook posts. Now, what's Robbie Lakeman been doing? Apart from political posts, and he is, I guess, conservative, not very loving towards the Democrat way. He's been regularly making political posts and pretty provocative and using some slurs along the way. But he's also been locked into a feud, and you see this picture here. Robbie Lakeman is on the left. This is Wes Copeland on the right. He's been making not so nice comments about him lately during his rants, and they fought over the title of the King of Kong. Almost a decade ago. Now, Robbie Lakeman achieved the world record, 2021, and that record stood. Twin Galaxies recognized the score. Guinness World Book of Records recognized the score. The Donkey Kong forums did not recognize the score. And the reason why they did not recognize the score is Robbie Lakeman claimed that the game will play a little different if you lower the voltage on the board. So typically an arcade PCB runs on 5 volts. Well, he lowered it down to 4.7. And supposedly the game acts a little different the lower the voltage. But that's unproven. Now you can set the voltage. Now if you set the voltage too low, the game will not work correctly. It's got to have 5 volts to run properly. But you can have a little deviance up or down. But you can't go too far from 5 volts. So he set to 4.7. And he achieved the record with the voltage at that level. Donkey Kong Forum thinks it was a form of cheating, and so they did not want to accept the score. Well, that's just one scoring house, but TG accepted it, and Guinness accepted it. He currently holds the high on Arcade.com for Donkey Kong. So, and the person who founded Donkey Kong Forums passed away a few years ago. Yeah, he had nothing good to say about him either. He made a post about the founder a few days ago, and it's like it's just disturbing. I mean, Robbie Lakeman, I don't know what's up with him. Maybe he's just cocky, but apparently this is not the first time he's done this. He's been. I checked his Facebook entry, and not Facebook entry. His Wikipedia entry, and he's made a number of bizarre statements in the past. I don't know what, and now he's just come out of the woodwork and engaging in pretty bizarre behavior yet again. I don't understand. Now, he's a prominent member of the gaming community to have the world record of Donkey Kong, and it stood for 4 years so far. No one People play this game, but nobody has come close to taking that away from him. Until then, but I mean, so, but apparently, I like did a little bit of research, and people are not going for that score because the public at large believe the environment for Donkey Kong scores is too toxic right now. So that score has stood for 4 years. I see a lot of live streams for Donkey Kong, but as of right now, no one has come close to 1.2 million. The next threshold to breach is 1.3. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But this is, I think, some other. Catherine Desperada wants other prominent members of the gaming community to start speaking out about this, and because this is concerning, and it's not gotten the attention until at least I gave it some attention right here on this podcast. One other thing I needed to bring up, and God, I do need to bring up something else that bothers me a little bit. And I'm not going to mention this person's name. Those in the know who this is. Those who aren't in the know, maybe I'll bring it up another time. But right now, I don't want to fight any grief upon this gamer because this gamer used to come around Galvin Ghost, set a number of scores, made some considerable waves. But last year, I did have to mediate a dispute that was had. And this past Monday, the feud has come to an end. The two people who were feuding over what was alleged to have happened to this other gamer accumulated in a game in a one-on-one matchup against in Power Stone 2. Both parties have acknowledged the feud is over. The time they're ready to reconcile. But the person who has been having issues said something about me, and I'm just kind of disappointed to have heard it from this person because, you know, we all have political opinions. I get it. Right now, the political climate in America is the worst it's ever been. It really has. Now, some of it has been pretty astroturfed. People have been throwing their money around and trying to inflate the numbers to make it claim that, oh, there's this massive support against this, or there's massive support for this. And it's not real. You're just paying somebody $20 to show up and hold a poster board in the air and scream bloody murder about this, that, and the other. And then when they're asked why are they protesting, they don't seem to know why they're there or what they're talking about. It typically happens over and over and over again. And you know, there's a Supreme Court ruling earlier this week too, but it's not going to affect the gamer in question. But there's comments about me, and I was just quite disappointed to hear it coming out of this person, this kid, because I stepped in to help mediate a situation. Yes, I see that. I see it. I see that you're holding up. We'll get to that in a moment. Just hang on, because what I'm talking about is pretty serious here. The person in question, has gotten out of hospital recently, and I'm gonna discount. You know, I realize when people are in pain, they tend to lash out at others, and I'm going to give this person a pass for that very reason, because they've been having a real difficult, rough time the last several months, and I don't wish it upon anybody. I mean, I've shown quite a bit of empathy. I've shown empathy for this gamer, and I'm not going to question their life choices. I'm going to warn about what they may be getting into, what they may be getting into, because in the future that may harm them in the long run. But I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to. I'm not going to try to lobby to tell them, hey, don't do this. I'm not going to dictate what they do. Yeah, but I'm going to give them what they need to know before they make the decision, so they can't say they weren't warned. And that should be a good thing. Cautionary tale, because things backfire when people make decisions and it ends up backfiring later, and sometimes they're not warned before they take an action. And if they take an action and they were warned that this could happen, I mean, it ends up the fault is by the person who makes the choices. But regardless, I have no ill will towards this gamer, and the good news is, versus yesterday, this gamer is finally is going to get a stable environment to live, recover, and heal up, get stronger, get their mindset back to a place where they can thrive instead of live rough. And hopefully down the road we can reconcile and discuss differences. But all I can say is I'm not going to take anything from you, and I'm not against you either. I mean, we're gonna agree to disagree on a bunch of stuff, but you've had a rough time, and things need to turn around for the better. And from what you said today, it looks like that is going to happen finally, and that's the best thing that can help you right now. All right, moving on. I do want to also touch on this, because this has been quite the bizarre little saga. Yes, Billy Mitchell won his court case against Carl Jobs, but now we got an issue of the Aussie court is trying to copyright strike all the streams about this rule. And why is the Australian courts sticking their nose in our business? They're copyright striking everything. And Tony Guerrero, who is an IP lawyer who's done a lot of coverage on this court case, has announced on his stream that he intends to countersue the Queensland court in Australia for these false copyright strikes, because they're not respecting the fair use provisions of the United States of America, and they're trying to take his channel down because he's already been dealing with another streamer that's been falsely striking his channel. It's ridiculous. There's something about fair use, and I have to say, it's always a good idea to not put all your content on one site. A lot of content creators like to use YouTube, but there's also Rumble and Odyssey, and I recommend mirroring your content to those sites. So if a video gets taken down on YouTube, it's still going to be on Rumble, it's still going to be on Odyssey, and they're not anal about copyright restrictions as YouTube is, or Google for that matter. All right. And switch to, well, I thought I was going to get to the meat and potatoes of this podcast already, but how many slides have I got? All right. Just 2 more, and I'll get ready. Get ready. Get ready, PIN. Get ready. Switch to. So there's been some Facebook, Twitter posts that people used a device to play backup games from a Switch on the Switch 2, and it's been breaking them. Nintendo has been breaking consoles if you use unauthorized devices on it. So you've spent several $100s on a Switch 2, and if you use unauthorized devices on it, Nintendo's going to shut off the online aspects of it, so you can never update firmware and updates for your games, and you pretty much have a barely functional paperweight. I think ultimately this is going to blow up in their face in the long run. Yeah, it's been the fastest selling console in the last few months, but it could also meet the same fate as the Wii U if Nintendo is not careful. As far as I'm concerned, I prefer to stay to the classic arcade game community. And the high score segment is going to be saved for next week. We don't really have much to talk about on that, but I do want to highlight this. So I talked about last week that Paul Mega Retroman Tessie set a new world record, breaking the 33 million on the Nintendo Campus Challenge. My cartridge that I competed on so many years ago. Paul played it again, and he had been, if you saw the previous week, the game would freeze at the end because I guess there's too much activity going on the screen. The game would freeze, I guess some sort of a bug, and so he was shortchanged some points on the previous run. So he modified his build, he played again, and last Saturday, he raised the score another 80,000 points. 33 million, just shy of 33.1 million points. Is there more to go on this? I don't know. Is this the last score we're going to see on Nintendo Campus Challenge? Don't know. But congratulations to Paul Tessie. He has maxed it out yet again. And yes, I could not do that. Yeah, nobody talked about scores this high way back in the early 90s. All right. Without further ado, our guest tonight. He is the artist for a whole slew of games. Classic arcade, pinball, PC, even the Switch. And I got a spammer in the group, and I got to get rid of that clown. Well, guess who is this goofball? I'll get to him in a minute. Oh, I can do that. Goodbye. Spammer. Anyway, here's the artist in a number of, for all the systems, hardware I mentioned, but also the creator of the Mortal Kombat logo. So he's on card 4113 and 3510. He also created the Pac-Man font, the entire font, I believe. And maybe the Hanna-Barbera cartoon character version of Pac-Man. Here's Paul Niemeyer.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good to see you.
Well, so there's also the situation of, so last week I was wondering, I had a prior guest where they said they were worried about imposter syndrome because they felt they weren't big enough to have big guests or hang out with the bigwigs of the gaming scene.
I don't know anybody in the business that or at least the people that are on the road with me now that don't have a certain amount of imposter syndrome. We all kind of feel like really this is really happening. And here's why. Here's why. Back in the day when we were doing these games, um, the attitude was always they're going to be popular until they're not. And then
Yeah.
after that, they just threw them on the scrap heap. And one thing I witnessed while I was working at Bally Midway as an employee, that was from 82 to 84. All right. I wasn't there very long, and they had these beautiful poplar flat files. They're gorgeous, and a lot of them, and they were already stuffed with artwork. One day, somebody came in from upstairs with some piles of artwork, opened up a drawer. It was full. They just pulled out whatever the hell was on the bottom and put the new artwork on and took that other stuff, rolled it up, and on their way out the door, tossed it in the trash. Whatever it was, don't know. And I saw that and I was like, this is
Did you fish some of it out?
Yeah. They don't archive anything. They're, for whatever reason, I mean, they were saving the artwork, but they were saving it just long enough until there was no more room for it. And then they tossed it out. So the word went around the art department pretty fast. And we all started stealing our artwork every night. Every night, I'd take something home. That's why I have all the stuff that I have, is because we started, smuggling it out. And we'd have gotten fired on the spot and maybe even charges, who knows, anything. They were so super sensitive about the security at that place. It was like, we're going to have the Pentagon. It really was. Yeah. Okay. Give you an idea. Here, let's talk about the security at Bally Midway. And I'm sure it was the same at other game companies because there was just so much money to be made.
They also didn't want stuff stolen from them.
Well, there you go.
Another competitor steal their idea and then create something.
My first week there at Bally Midway in 82, and I mean, I was as green as a boy could be, straight off the farm, literally.
Right.
Straight off the farm, okay? And I'm just like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I can't believe I'm here. And I couldn't. And there was somebody, I don't even know who he was. To this day, I don't even know who he was. I mean, that was my first week there. And he's tooling through the art department, and I'm thinking, this guy is a somebody. He walks around here like he owns the place,
Yeah.
So, like, note to self, get to know him. All right. So I go home on Friday, and I come back on Monday, and the whole place is a buzz, boy. Everybody's talking about this guy who cleaned out his files on Friday and showed up at Atari in LA on Monday morning. Oops. My first week. It was my first week. All right. And so now the shit's hitting the fan. And all kinds of security protocols are initiated. At that point, we had to have a 4-digit code to get in the building at any point in time. The 4-digit code was changed every month. And if you didn't get your little card with the new 4-digit code on it, kind of meant you weren't coming back. That was your subtle slip, Kind
of like a Windows password.
Yeah, crazy. So, even though Brian Colin, who we just had on the show, great guy, we've become fantastic friends while on the road. We were hired about a couple weeks apart from each other back in 82. And even though he worked only one floor above me, I barely knew him. Because you never saw anybody else unless you were working on a game with them. And to even use the elevator to go up to the second floor and talk to them, you had to have the 4-digit code for the game. that you put in, you programmed into the. Keep in mind, this is 1982.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these security protocols, they're like I said, it was like working at the Pentagon. It really was. I remember coming there for on a weekend. I had a special project that the president of the company wanted to have happen. Dumped it on my boss, Paul Ferris, and he happily dumped it on me. But it was overtime, and he knew I wanted overtime. So I came in on the weekend, and I came in on a Saturday. And I remember I'd been out running, you know, and so I was a little sweaty, and I had just a wife beater. I hate that term, but I had a wife beater T-shirt on and kind of little shorts. Actually, I had short pac-man shorts.
Wow.
Yeah, so I came in on Saturday, and there's like nobody there, and I had to come in through the factory entrance because that's the only place where the security guards were, and they wouldn't let me in because I was dressed like that. Yeah.
Well,
and I'm going,
there's a
it's
dress code.
Saturday.
Yeah, I get it.
And they were like, we have a dress code. I'm like, it's Saturday. You think I'm going home and changing clothes and come back here to work? Tell you what, you explained to Majeski why his project didn't get done, because I went home. I don't know whatever happened with that. I didn't get in trouble, but somebody did. but that just goes to show you that, like, the security protocol, and I really think like all of those guys were more afraid of, like, if I didn't follow the rules and something happened and I left that guy in, it's going to come back on my ass. So
Yeah.
that was their whole, thing. It was a little weird, a little weird. But a lot of weird things happened that I can kind of see why it was like that. Okay, first of all, the security issue when we first started. Another security issue happened. Maybe I was there about a year, and my desk was right by the door. So anything that happened, anything came through the door, I knew about it first. And there was like a long hallway, so not everybody knew everything that was going on. I knew exactly immediately. So one day, door opens up, and this woman about 5'0", blonde, nice gray business suit on, 80 pounds soaking wet, I swear. She was a tiny little thing. And she flips out a badge, and she goes, push away from your desk, customs agents. Customs agents? Yeah, customs agents, all right?
Real or impersonating?
Okay, it was the 80s, so you're thinking, hey, maybe it's a stripper. Maybe it wasn't a stripper. It really was a customs agent, because no more than she did that, 2 shaved gorillas in Men in Black suits came in right behind her, and it was the real deal. You're like, what the F is this? Okay. They did a walk through the art department, and everybody was kind of like, what? We're all dicking around. We're all 12 years old anyway. So, you tell a bunch of 12-year-olds to not do anything. Well, yeah.
Why was she there?
Around the art department, and then they were out, and it was done. And that was the end of it. Okay. So, fast forward to my exit interview. When I got laid off. Yeah, we all got.
After Midnight Marauders.
Yeah. I was the first victim of the 1983 video game crash, because I was low man on the totem pole. So I was first one out and up. Paul Ferris, great guy, amazing boss. He gave me a game in December, Midnight Marauders, and we all knew that our heads were on the block.
Yeah.
So when he gave me a game, I was very encouraged. I thought, maybe this is a good sign. I'm here to stay, Right. And I poured myself into Midnight Marauders. I really did. I did every part of that game, including a sculpt of a moon surface that we needed a 3D surface. And I was like, hey, I'm your one-stop shop, man. I actually have a degree in 3D sculpting and ceramics. So I put that to work, thinking I was, shoring up my possibility of having that job, keeping that job, right? And no more than I got the artwork done, bam, the axe fell. That was the end of it. I never even saw the game completed. I finally played it at Doc's last year.
Scalping Ghost Pinball.
Yeah, for the first time ever, I played Midnight Marauders. It took 42 years.
Yeah.
And I kicked his ass. Yeah, hard to believe. First time. Okay,
My
so
gosh. I got to throw it on the screen, by the way, so
Yeah.
everybody knows what we're talking about.
Okay, well, I got to segue that with that segue. That segue. So let's go back to. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Midnight Marauders. Oh my God, you're good. That's awesome. That's crazy.
I'll throw this up there. There we go. Go ahead. Yeah, 42 years, and then you played it once, and then we were together at the pinball sometime later, and the game was down.
Yeah. I did all that artwork on the inside there, and boy, everything. And I thought for sure that it was saving the day, but it wasn't. And out the door I went. So anyway,
apparently they only made 100 of these.
200, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 200 was the that was like the bare minimum game number. Whenever they were like doing a test thing, or we're going to see if this works out, 200 seemed to be the number. I'm guessing it was a break even. Who knows? But 200 was the number. Maybe, I don't know. Did they make 100 of these? Did you see that somewhere? It's possible. Who knows? They did not make many. Well, the whole point of it was to revitalize the old shoot 'em up arcade. Shoot the ducks with a rifle, but now you're shooting aliens and spacecraft with lasers and whatever. It had so many glitches. It was a mess. I mean, I heard that through the grapevine. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the customs agent. Okay. So
real quick.
Yeah, customs agent. All right. So now it turns out on my exit interview, I'm literally got my hand on the door is open, and I'm walking out, and Paul Ferris says to me, "Is there anything else? You got any questions? And anything you want to know before we're done here?" And I said, "Yes, there is one thing. That day when the customs agent came in with the two shaved gorillas and walked through the art department and then out the door. I mean, they're only here like maybe 30 seconds, but what the F was that about?" And he goes, "Shut the door." I went, "What?"
So he would not tell you.
Well, no, he's going to tell me, but he wanted to make sure I was the only ears that heard it.
Okay.
It was a shut the door conversation. Okay?
All right.
Okay, so now I'm walking out the door, and I've literally got it open, and now we're shutting the door, and I'm coming back in, and I'm sitting down. And he says, "Okay, remember back when you first started here, and even though Bally Midway built the dream team of art, art department, and a dream team of a programming department on the second floor. Right. Even though they did all of that, they still couldn't get past the bugaboo in the back of their head that always said, our success was because of Japanese games. So Pac-Man, Space Invaders, that's where they were living. So what did they do? They took huge wads of money, big fistfuls of money, and they went to Japan. And they threw it at any flipping game that came across their scope of, knowledge, whatever, there's little sphere of influence. And so we were inundated back in the States with all of these games that just kept showing up. And the reason I know this is because being the low man on the totem pole, I always volunteered to try and do the graphics on all of these games. I figured if I could get, they were quick turnaround, and I could do something flashy and fast and get the attention of my boss and rise up through the art department, because I was definitely the low man on the totem pole. So I was very ambitious. So that's how I got involved with all of that. So I said, sure, I remember. God knows there was an endless flow of games that came in from Japan. That is correct, sir. And he said, do you remember we also had a whole bunch of independent contractors that were coming and going and working on stuff, and everybody was, a specialist, and it was like a little beehive going on there, everybody coming and going. I said, yeah, it was pretty busy there for a while. And he goes, then it just kind of stopped, didn't it? Yeah, it sure did. Yeah, here's why. Turns out spies, real spies, had
For what? For whom?
I know. Strap in.
The Russians?
Strap in because it gets weirder from here, okay?
Yeah.
I swear, here, we were talking about security risks. Here's why. Boy, there was some weird shit going on here. Strap in. Okay. Real spies apparently were piggybacking information onto the hard drives of the games that were coming in, and it was a way to smuggle in clandestine information. And some of those independent contractors that were coming and going were the ones that were downloading the information and taking it to whoever their source is.
Classified information was being smuggled in on arcade hardware.
Yes.
That's...
Yeah.
I wonder why an article hadn't been written on that.
It's like a movie script, okay?
Yeah. It's kind of like the Cloak and Dagger, that movie.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, that explains a lot of weird stuff, but it doesn't explain the custom agent. Here's where it comes. I
have to guess let me guess if I get this right.
Yeah, no, go.
You see a lot of 90s arcade hardware, they have this splash screen saying, this game is for use in this country only. And if you're playing this game in somewhere else, you're involved in a crime. Like you're playing a Japanese board in America, you're involved in a crime. Or China or whatever. And of course, Galloping Ghost has a lot of these boards with that disclaimer, and I'm surprised they haven't been. I have always wondered why they've never been prosecuted by running all these foreign boards. So is that the reason?
I can absolutely say that you have not even come close.
I had to guess, but that was a good theory.
That was a damn good theory, and I was almost willing to go along with that when it was so good, because the real reason sucks out loud.
Okay, let's hear it.
The real reason was they figured that the only way they're going to pull that off is if they had an accomplice on the inside that was helping them. So
did they know who they were looking for?
Well, they didn't know who they were looking for. That's why they walked in and made that little show with the little show and tell, flashing the badge and walking in with two shaved gorillas in suits, so that if anybody that was guilty was just going to be crapping their pants. But nobody was.
Unless they're good at putting forth a poker face.
Well, yeah, but I think they were pretty much counting on nobody being good at that sort of thing. But here we are. Again, I go back to the point where that the art department is made up of 12-year-olds who are all throwing paper airplanes at each other when we're not given a task to do. So it took them about a whole 30 seconds to figure out these lunkheads aren't capable of helping anybody out, much less themselves. So they're off the hook.
Wow.
But that's what was happening, and what a weird thing. I mean, it's like right out of a B movie. It really is.
Well, Nate, and like I said, Cloak and Dagger, that movie, which ended up being an Atari arcade game. I guess the premise got carried over to that. And maybe that was the inspiration, for all I know.
Boy. Yeah. Well, we should have made a movie about that.
Like I said, they did. Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, they did, right? Damn it.
All right, let's go back to the very beginning. So Brian Cullen went to SIUC, the same college that I went to, or university. Where did you go to school?
I went to Eastern Illinois University, home of the Panthers.
Which my sister went there, so I have an Eastern Illinois sweatshirt.
Oh, no kidding. I graduated in 1979. When was she there?
She was there, God. Lee, geez. Maybe the late 90s?
Oh,
Because she was studying to be a dietitian. She's not really much of a gamer. I'm the gamer. I'm the more the tech guy. But
well, something about Eastern Illinois University. They just recently, about a month ago, contacted me, and they are putting together on September 25th coming up. They're putting together a Comic-Con on campus, and I'm going to be the featured guest at the show. And as an alumni, they're honoring me with that. I thought that was very kind. I was very humbled by that. That was pretty cool. My university.
oh, it's a homecoming for you.
Yeah, how about it, man? My old alma mater is throwing a convention around my sorry butt. Hard to believe what happened there.
You know, you got to honor the big, the famous people that come out of that university. And
it was very nice. I was very flattered by that whole thing. It was very cool. It was very cool.
It's September the 25th. What's the name of the con?
They couldn't call it Comic-Con, so what the hell? They had legal reasons for that. I forget. I should look. Oh
boy, we got to find out.
That's not good. I'm not doing very good at the promo, am I? Well, I do know.
We'll circle back to it. We'll circle back to it later.
25th, and it's in Charleston, Illinois. It's a Saturday, and I think it's going to be at like Booth Library, which is the center of campus. You can't miss Booth Library. So
okay, so
I missed it while I was there, but we went and made out in the stacks, but didn't actually go to the library.
So back then, so you went to Eastern. Now, gaming. So when you graduated from Eastern Illinois, what did you think you were going to be doing when you graduated, what was your career goal?
Be a pinball artist.
Pinball artist.
Oh, okay. It actually was. Yeah, I mean, I remember. I was sitting in class and they'd have roll call. The moment I, got my name called, I'd find a way to slip out the back, and we'd slide on over to the Union and get a pocket full of quarters and play pinball. And ironically, one of the games I remember playing was the artist was Doug Watson, and I can't remember the name. Maybe Barracora was the game, but I remember thinking, oh man, Doug Watson, this guy, he's the coolest. And when I got hired at Bally, I was in the next cubicle over from Doug Watson, and now Doug and I are like the best of friends now. Mm-hmm. But at the time, when I was in college, I thought, this guy, man, he's the guy. Okay, so I graduated from college, and I'm working in a sign shop on the southwest side of Chicago, and I get a phone call from my buddy Kurt, and he's looking for a job, and he's an artist also. And he goes, dude, your dream job is in the paper. It's Bally Midway. I'm telling you. So he gives me the information and the phone number. I'm all excited, An hour later, Keith Rocco, the artist who I replaced at the sign company. Keith Rocco, by the way, is an incredibly famous Civil War and Napoleonic painter, world renowned now. But anyway, I took over his job, and he called me up and he said, dude, exact same conversation. Dude, your dream job is in the paper.
Not the newspaper, but
yeah, the newspaper. I know
the ads in the paper, but not as a journal. They weren't talking about going into journalism.
Yeah, no. Yeah. By the way, kids, the newspaper was this thing that came out every day and had all the news of the day on it, kind of like Google, but on paper. Okay.
Yeah.
And there were jobs in it in the back in what was called the want ads, because you wanted, you were wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you were wanting, let's say that. Yeah, you were wanting. So yeah, I literally got the job through the want ads in the Chicago Tribune. There you go. And my life was changed. Life was changed. I mean, I can't imagine how my life had turned out had I not gotten that job, because after, even when I left there, when I was fired, laid off, whatever to call it, I, I think I left like on a Friday, and I was working at an ad agency freelancing on Monday, literally making triple what I had been making over at Bally. So yeah, it changed everything. And from then on, it was just working all the ad agencies on Michigan Avenue. I became one of the top 100 illustrators in Chicago for a while there. Yeah.
Similar to what Brian Collin was doing before he got hired.
Yeah. We gotta switch switch on that. He was doing advertising before he got into Bally. I was doing sign stuff, and in fact that's where I learned how to hand letter. It was 1980, and they had just invented vinyl lettering. And
I was in grade school and getting
yeah,
and I acquired got for my birthday an Atari 2600 with Space Invaders, which was my hook.
Right. How about it? Oh, we live for that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Space Invader. Oh my God. Yeah. And Battle Zone, the vector, and it's so funny. The whole game is you get this huge cabinet, and the whole game is through a little viewer about this big.
Yeah, and I did before this interview started. I did some preparation. I kind of looked back at some old interviews you did, and yes, what was the hook? You said Battle Zone.
Yeah.
Which that game is not typically a game that would be thrown out as a hook. Although for somebody else, they say their favorite game of all time is like Tony Hawk.
Yeah,
that'd be Brandy Gamer Aimer. But Battlezone wasn't the easiest game to play.
No, it was a quarter eater. Oh my God, that's bad. That's why they had it in bars. You know, you'd get drunk and you'd keep feeding quarters into it. At the end of the night, you go,
or breaking the sticks. I mean, kind of. I mean,
that game.
Yeah, back in the day, I guess it would show up in a bar, but if you go to a bar, it's going to be a Ms. Pac-Man or Big Buck Hunter or Golden Tee.
Right. Well, when you were doing it, I was long before for any of those video games. I got hired, and then we made the video games that went into the bars. They didn't even exist. Like I said, Battle Zone and Space Invaders were the only games I remember playing. I mean, Pac-Man later, but like that was just maybe the year before I was hired at Bally. Well, yeah,
here's the other.
80 and 81.
Yes, vector games are super cool, and yes, the Army did use Battlezone for training, a special version, and there's like a 1 of 1. You have to go Google searching, but
because you couldn't beat the damn thing.
Yeah, I'm just average at Battlezone. I'm not going to be able to marathon that game or play very long because I don't know. What was the first pinball you played? Do you happen to remember that?
Oh, okay. My family used to go to this resort in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, and if we were feeling really rich, we'd stay at the Ritzy Hotel. And the Ritzy Hotel had a game room that had these 2 pinball machines. Now, this is the 60s. I'm like maybe 10, 11 years old, so this had to be about 1966 or 67.
And they're EMs, electromechanical.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
Yeah.
They're totally old school games.
Right.
But I remember I can still remember the first time walking toward the game room and hearing that strange noise. Ding, 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 bang, 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 bing, 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 right?
Right.
What the F is that?
Yeah.
And so I get in it, and it's a pinball. I'd never seen a pinball machine before, and I was just fascinated, absolutely fascinated with it. And I remember, boy, if my parents ever wanted to just keep me busy, just a handful of quarters and plunk me down in front of that pinball machine in the game room, and I was never leaving.
Right.
Yeah, so I fell in love with pinball early on. I don't know why. I was just fascinated by it, and it was just so much fun and something I'd never seen before. Growing up on a farm, you're pretty isolated. Let's face it, you're gigantically isolated.
Well, I lived in Jacksonville, Illinois, so it was kind of away from everything. But the neighbor owned an arcade.
Oh, you lucky bastard!
Yeah, I guess I should. And the other thing, I need to find the family that lived in my neighborhood. Although until recently, I kind of want to find pictures of that arcade from back in the 80s. I don't know if the person who ran it is still around. Their kids are still around, but I don't know if the person who ran it is still around. Of course, I'm 53 now, going on 54. He may not be. He may not be walking among us for now, but
well, I mean, if they're paying attention at all, they're certainly seeing that arcades and barcades are on the upswing. I mean,
right.
I travel all over the country a lot. I'm on the road almost every weekend in a different city, and these barcades are popping up everywhere. I know because they always ask us to come by and make a guest appearance, and what fun! That's great fun. I'm blown away by it. How is this happening? How is this phenomenon? It's
I'm waiting for that to happen for me, but I don't know when that's going to happen. Given that, well, at least on the, I don't know, every new game place that opens up in the Central Illinois. I mean, I've got that Nintendo Championship under my belt. Obviously, the Galvin Ghost Gamer of the Year a little more recently.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing conventions, you're doing panels. I've only done a few. I've also wanted to appear in some video game documentary.
Yeah.
Ghost Lord and the Quest for Dark Presence is going to be, my debut.
Yeah. Whenever I see you at a show, we always get to hang out. That's always fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, GameCon last year, or was it a couple of years ago? Right. And then the Airbnb, that was awesome.
That was really fun. That was crazy. And the Airbnb above the arcade. How cool was that? That was the coolest place. Boy, the last thing I expected was that hip condo or whatever you want to call it, apartment. It looked like it should have been in a New York skyscraper, not McLean, Illinois. Right? It was just like, boy, when you walk in off the street and everything, the whole town has got that Victorian feel to it. And you walk in up and you go upstairs and you turn the corner and it's just this hip, modern, cool apartment. Man, that place was something else. That was a lot of fun.
I'll let you get that phone call.
No,
let me set that up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of news on that. They're expanding. John Yates is expanding. They're opening a new building in the fall or early or winter.
Oh, no kidding.
And yeah, so they're going to add another few hundred games.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, what really blew me away was the arcade that was part of the apartment. The spiral staircase in the back of the place that went down to downstairs to another floor, and there was a private arcade with maybe a dozen games in there at least. Yeah, that was nuts. That apartment was something else. It
also had the prototype Defender which has different artwork than the release, and it had, I guess, stolen comic book art on the side plates and the kick plate.
Wow.
And
That's
there's
great.
only a few of those in Richie
Yeah.
Nichols.
Yeah. Well, there was a story behind that apartment too. It turns out that apparently his wife, I think, was from New York, and so she wanted that style of an apartment. So he gutted the whole place and redid it and did it all up like that. And she took one look at it and went, "Yeah, it's nice, but it's in downtown McLean, so you know."
By the way, they don't have a square; they have a triangle. That's another little unique aspects to McLean.
Damn it!
Which kind of adds to the charm.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, they've done something else to that area. They've painted a huge mural that looks like a pinball machine on one of the grain elevators.
Oh yeah, right, yeah, crazy, huh? Yeah. I wish I had goofy money like that. I could just do fun stuff like that with it.
I do miss, Illinois Game. Yeah, that was like right after Illinois Game Con concluded, and we just all gathered up over there. I did miss you out at the Game Con this year, but you were out in North Carolina.
Yeah, I was in Raleigh doing a show there. The Game and Geek. That was a lot of fun. That was first year for that show. You would have never known it. It looked like a really well established show. Brian Colin was out there with me. And,
yep.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Yeah, good show, a lot of fun. I find myself doing a lot of shows that are fledgling shows, or kind of maybe their first or second year, and that they really can't afford to bring out too many guests. So I'm an affordable guest to have come out, and I promote the living crap out of it, because my background is the ad agencies and the marketing agencies in Chicago. So marketing runs in my blood. So
what did you think of that show? You said you was there had been a lot of chatter over somebody getting kicked out of the convention for no good reason, and like a little controversy. And then the question was, did they get enough draw to break even? And that's been the real question.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, boy, I'm edging up to almost my 100th show. I was just figuring it out the other day. I've got to be pretty close to 100 conventions I've done. I know I'm in the 90s.
For how many years?
5.
And they're all different, or some of them the same?
There's a couple of them that are repeats. Like I've been to Portland a couple of years, and I've been to Phoenix a couple of years.
And Midwest Gaming
shows I've done 2 years of. Sometimes I'll take a break, like Houston, the retro pinball game, pinball show. I took a break last year, but I'm appearing again this year. So I mean, there's a bunch of repeats, but a lot of brand new shows, and a lot of new places and new cities and new people to meet and new fans, and get to hear their stories and tell mine, and I'm having a ball. I really am. I actually prefer doing the smaller shows. You get to talk to people a little bit more, and like I said, there's not 20 guests. There's maybe 2. And so I get to share a little bit more with the fans, and they seem to like it a whole lot more, because we're having conversations, and it's
and you did spring. You came to my hometown fairly recently, Springfield. So
yeah.
And that was not bad.
That was a good show. Yeah,
Springfield's kind of hard to get people to show up for stuff, but this seemed to turn out very well. So
so I'm gonna give Keith Rocco another plug here. While I was in Springfield, I went to the Lincoln Museum, and 2 of his murals are featured. in the museum there. He's definitely the real deal, man. He's big time. Good guy, and just the nicest guy too. Yeah.
So I got some notes here, and you've told this story a number of times, but I kind of want to zoom in on this one.
Okay.
The early days. I mean, your first game was Tron, and you've told the story that you're told that you were going to see the entire movie to get inspiration on making an arcade game from it. And the Disney rep showed up and only had a 30-second trailer.
Yeah.
Like, what? Are you wanting a good game or are you wanting shovelware? Because 30 seconds of footage and you're only going to allow us to view it once? What do you think you're going to get from us?
That's about it. And that was exactly it. And we were like, really, we had a big old what on our face. And when it was over, the guy rewound it and put it in the case. And we said, can we see it again? And this is the only word that I remember him speaking the entire time he was there. He went, nope.
And I've been screaming, why?
Like, and we're just
why?
like,
what are you expecting from us?
Well,
and I was just like, if this is all you're going to give us to go with, and good luck. Good luck.
I think
I would have just kicked him to the curb at that point.
I think at that point we were just like, this place, whatever. You just went along with whatever was happening. So I remember the guy packed up and he walked out, and the conference room we were in had windows that looked out of the parking lot, and we're just sitting there like idiots. Like, is he coming back? Is there more? Is there, is he going to the
just
bathroom?
In disbelief.
Where did he go? What did he do?
And he ran away.
Well, we looked out the window and a cab pulled up and he got in it, so we could pretty much figured this meeting's over.
Like, you wasted our time with this nonsense.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Now, this guy, he was being punished for something. He did something that, right? Because there's no internet. It's 1982. He had to pack up, get in a plane in LA, fly to Chicago, take a cab from the airport over to Bally, which was only 5 minutes. We're on the end of a runway practically, and and show us the 30 seconds of Tron trailer. It wasn't even a trailer. It was just a bunch of scenes spliced together. They weren't even gently done. It wasn't done like a trailer. You could tell it was just like, toss some shit in here, put it on a tape, and let me get the hell out of here. That's what it looked like. Okay. And that's what he showed us, and we got to see that, and out the door he went, and that was the end of that. And I'm guessing, he was being punished for something that he had to make that trip. Right?
So from there,
wasn't a reward.
So, I mean, we got the game we got. How did you get there? It's the question after that.
Well, they had sent over all the images. Excuse me. And but I mean, it literally, we had no idea. It's kind of like, at that point, we were like, well, I'm guessing this guy is the hero. You know? And I remember Paul Ferris at one point walking in and saying to us, his name is Tron. And we're like, oh, because we literally did not know even that much about the movie. Like,
yeah.
Oh, his name's Tron. Because at that point it was like, so what is a Tron? Are we going to find that out? Or is that
the Titantron like WWE uses?
Yeah, is that Jermaine?
That's a Tron.
And it was and the thing there too, you had a lot of images of stuff, and you're like, it's cool. I have no idea what it is. It looks like a motorcycle with a beam shooting out the back of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. It was kind of like, yeah, who knew? Who knows what was going on?
And that light cycle game was kind of inspired by the Atari 2600 game Surround.
Oh, really?
Well, the gameplay's similar.
Yeah.
Or if you want to talk about the Gremlin game Blockade, which I think came out about the same time.
Yeah.
But
Well, then we worked on Discs of Tron, and I worked with Doug Watson on that. And I remember they had an environmental cabinet that they had made with it, and the engineer was short, so the opening on the cabinet wasn't big enough for me or Doug Watson, who's 6 foot, or George Gomez, who's 6'1". I'm 6'4". Okay, we all got like permanent dents in the side of our head from hitting that damn cabinet, trying to get in that metal cabinet. Okay, but at that point, it's already on the books. It's already, I'm sure the dye or whatever the hell it is they use to cut them out in the factory was already, chiseled in stone. There was no changing it. So the answer to that was they put a foam, just a foam rib on the top of the door.
Yeah.
You're still hitting your head, but it didn't hurt so bad now.
Logan's Arcade in Chicago has one of these. I think there was a story a few years back where a disc of Tron Environmental was rescued from being dumped on the curb. Although we won't have time to talk about that, but there's stories about rescuing disc of Tron. There's also been rumors that it was supposed to be the 5th level of the original arcade game Tron, and it ended up being broken out into a separate game. Was that true?
Boy, you're asking the wrong guy on that. We were mushrooms, They just kept us in the dark and fed us shit. So,
wow.
Well, nobody knew anything. Nobody knew any more than what you absolutely, positively had to know, and not an iota more than that. And later on, when I freelanced for Disney, they were even worse about that. Everybody goes, "Oh, working for Disney must have been great fun." No, it was not. It was not fun at all. We were with one other guy.
Actually, nowadays,
yeah,
I think
that would be worse. I don't even know. Anyway, yeah. Talk to Philo Barnard. He and I are good friends. He'll tell you some horror stories, unofficially. They're unofficial, right? Yeah. Officially, Disney's awesome.
Years ago they were, but nowadays not so much.
Unfortunately, it's kind of the way it's kind of got to be. Yeah, he's got an agreement with them that out in public he's always happy and can't say enough nice things about them. That's the deal. Yeah.
So I saw a headline today that Disney World's attendance is at an all-time low. Universal is taking all their attention, and of course, I certainly want to visit Super Mario World at some point at Universal because I got that Nintendo title under my belt.
Yeah, how fun is that? I mean, really. Yes. Well, look at it. Video games come to life for a bunch of big kids. Let's face it, I'm still 12. Right. I mean, really. I'm struggling with my wife the other day. So, I've somehow managed to make a living out of being 12 years old.
Gaming, yes. Gaming is something that has developed for all ages. It's not just for kids.
Just childlike.
Yes.
Maybe sometimes childish.
Right.
But mostly childlike. I'm going with that. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Mom.
So there's a long list of games that you're associated with. I don't know if I can get them all off the top of my head. Satan's Hollow, Pac-Man Plus. Let's go through the list first. Then we'll touch on individual games. Yeah, Pac Plus, and I got the I pulled this out.
You got an actual header there. Wow.
Yeah. I have a header. I have decor around the room.
And I drew that artwork in an afternoon. Yeah.
Satan's Hollow, let's see. Wacko, although the character was made by Brian Colin. What else is there? God, Tron, obviously.
The funny thing is, I've got a quick Wacko story. For literally 40 years, I assumed that all of the characters on Wacko in the game were Brian Colan's. And when I was assigned to that game, I thought to myself, well, I've got to represent all the characters that are in this game, and do a good job on it. Even though it's my take on them, I'm doing my version of them. I wanted to make sure that I stayed true to Brian's characters. So that was my thinking. And for 40 years, I thought that's what I did until Brian and I were in a tandem interview once. And I started talking about that. And he goes, I didn't do those characters. And I went, who did? He goes, I don't know, some programmer. It's like, are you kidding me?
Created all the monsters, but he was only responsible for Cosmic Cruiser.
He was responsible for Cosmic Cruiser, which was used. It was the only character that was his that was in the game. That was a central character,
right?
So, that's cool. But none of those bad guys and none of the other stuff that was in the game were his. I assumed, because Cosmic Cruiser was his, that they all were. For 40 years, I had assumed that, only to be corrected by him in that interview, saying, "Oh, I have no idea who did those characters." But you did a nice job on them, Paul. So way to go. There you go.
And it was a little interesting that Cosmic Cruiser, an alien, was battling like movie monsters, Dracula, the werewolf, and
they were kind of like they were movie-esque.
Yeah,
there was kind of a Dracula character, and there was kind of a blob character,
right?
And there was kind of a creature from the Black Lagoon character-esque. Yeah, I wasn't sure what that was. Like, again, we never questioned anything. It was like, oh, these are the characters. Okay, whatever. For whatever reason, these are the characters. Shut up, just do them. Don't ask too many questions. Well, okay, here, ask a question. I can tell you what the answer is going to be. Don't ask.
I don't know. That would be a better answer.
That was more like it. It was more, yeah. Because like what I said, like working for Disney. Usually, if you're working with one other person and they know nothing, right? And you'll call them up and say, "Hey, I got a question about this," and he'll say, "I probably don't know it, but go ahead and ask anyway." And they didn't. They never knew it. They always have to, go ask somebody else, whatever it was. Again, keep the least amount of information you could possibly have to maintain.
I do want to point out that last weekend, Wieners and Losers, if you're familiar with that Airbnb in North Carolina, I don't know if you have got a chance to go over there or not. I suspect no.
No, actually, yeah, we were pretty busy with everything. There was a after hours rave at the show that I ended up going to, and it was one of those. I'll just poke my head in and say howdy, and then scoot. Like 2.5, 3 hours later.
Well, they're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. You're in Raleigh, so I don't know how far that away. But this is an air.
A couple hours, like 2 or 3 hours.
But this is a 1980s Airbnb. Totally everything in the building is early 1980s. Okay. All the arcade games is from anything 1984 or earlier, and all the decor, all the stuff that's in there, 1980s. They periodically unveil a new game for their arcade floor. They unveiled Wacko. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that one because that came up. So a little bit of coincidence. Brian Colan worked on the main character, and then that was one of your games that you're primarily associated with.
Right, and that's one of the, there are only a handful of games that have 100% my artwork on the cabinet. Wacko's one of them. That is 100% my artwork on the entire cabinet. Satan's Hollow is another one, and Mortal Kombat is the other one.
So here's a question: why was Wacko slanted?
I don't have the faintest idea. I know the engineers were cursing under their breath the whole time that they were working on it. It again, it was wacko. The whole thing was just wacko.
Yeah, literally.
Again, yeah, and it was a one and done, and there was never any plan to expand on that idea. Let's do another game that's all twin. No, it was not.
It was just this game's unique gimmick.
Yeah, we're done. Yeah.
Well, the other problem with this game was, there's a Facebook group called Weird Arcade Conversions. I've seen Wacko converted to Rostod, and it was in a Huck's gas station in Fairfield, Illinois. And it's like I saw this thing and like, what the heck is this?
What abomination be this? Yeah. What fresh hell be this?
I could not. It's like, yeah, there's been, that Facebook group is quite interesting, but this was back in the day when I saw this. I don't think I can find a photo of this now, but jeez.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
I did a lot of skiing in the late 80s and all through the 90s, all over the world. And I was shocked a lot of times that you'd walk into a place and there'd be one of my old games. At that point, it'd be 15 years old or so, but I was still plugging away. Some bar in Wisconsin or something. I remember getting off the plane in Europe. I was going on a ski vacation in Switzerland, and our first point of entry was where the hell was it? I don't know. It wasn't in Switzerland, and Brussels. It was Brussels, and got off that, and I'd been telling everybody on the plane, I did the artwork on Satan's Hollow, and they're like, sure you did, buddy.
They didn't know who you were. Well,
no. And we got off the plane, and bang, like right at like almost at the coming off the ramp is a Satan's Hollow game, and we go, hey, look, there's my initials right there.
PEN.
Yeah, right in the old.
There's the marquee.
Yeah,
there's also a pack plus below that, somewhere in there. Oh, hang on. Let me turn off that. I'm gonna full screen you. Hold on. Whoop. Wait a minute. Well, is this gonna work correctly? Oh, I gotta do solo layout. There we go. Go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
It's somewhere on the bottom. I can raise it up.
Yeah. So
it's hard to see in this shot, but
it's down in here somewhere. Anyway,
right.
So anyway, you also can kind of see the Satan head they use here, the kind of 1930s vaudeville looking Satan.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So when they first started with Satan's, okay, here's what happened. My boss Paul Ferris came over to my desk, armload full of blueprints, throws them on the desk, and he goes, how'd you like to do a game? And now at this point, I'd always worked with somebody else. And I mean, like I said, I'm the new guy. I'm 24 years old. I've only been there a couple months. And he goes, you're working with you. I went, oh my God, that's awesome. Holy crap. I have a game to myself. Holy crap. So what's the game? He says, Satan's Hollow. Now, I was raised really super ultra conservative Lutheran, so I just had to laugh to myself. Well, this is going to go over like a ton of bricks at home.
Of course, you're fighting Satan, so what? So it's not going to be that bad.
You know that, and I know that, but all I had to do was use the word Satan, and my mom went Satan because she's like church lady.
Yeah, I remember all that.
Oh yeah. So anyway, halfway through, now my very first, I got to show this. So now the game is being re-released on ColecoVision. And, here it is. So this is new Satan that I came up with, which was actually the old Satan that I came up with. Yeah, well, hello. Back in 1982.
Right.
And you can see that Legend had just come out. The movie Legend had just come out with Tim Curry and what's his face? Tom Cruise. And
Right.
so, there was an influence here. You can see the horns coming out of the side of the head. And that's the Satan I designed back in 1982. And
Right.
and then we ended up in a meeting. And Paul Ferris and I were in this meeting. And in the meeting, they must have gotten cold feet about going for the whole Satan thing. Because now they're kind of backing down a little bit. And they're going, maybe more of a vaudevillian kind of a 1930s kind of, this Satan from like little pointed, skull cap with the little horns, and that's the Satan that we want, And I remember Paul going, okay, you got it, no problem. And I'm thinking to myself, we're gonna have to redo this thing from scratch. Are you kidding me? It's almost done. And we leave the meeting and we get in the elevator and the doors go like this. Shh. And the minute they close, he went, we're not doing that. We're not doing any of that. We're going to just put a different head, just make the head they want and put it on the artwork and call it a day. And that is exactly what we did. So now I have my way. It only took 43 years later. And so I finally got to do the Satan that I wanted to do back in 1982, and there he is. So,
And this is going to be on the box art.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The packaging art. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have anything to do with the actual games. Everything I did was okay. I went from doing the artwork on the cabinets to graduated to doing the artwork on the packaging, because it's all, all that stuff is really the front lines of any game. Right. You're not going to play that game unless, like in the old days, that marquee in the arcade was something that attracted you to the game. I've heard people talk about Mortal Kombat, that then they'd go there, they'd look for that beacon. They'd use the word beacon. And it's true. It really was. It was a beacon beckoning you to come and play. Right. And then the same thing happens with the packaging. If regardless of what the game is, if the packaging sucks, you're probably not going to pick it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mortal Kombat, so we've talked about before, basically at con, you designed the logo, and the last couple of years.
Actually, I didn't design the logo.
You didn't?
I illustrated the logo.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it was they had the logo, and John Tobias had done some rough sketches of like the art on the side of the cabinet and header art, and it was called Dragon Attack at the time. It wasn't, so I mean, I've still got all those sketches. I mean, they're pretty loose, but the idea was all there.
Right.
And I remember that I had to illustrate the dragon logo first, and that there was a lot of doctoring and so I guess it's half and half. I put plenty into it, but I didn't come up with the dragon, but I doctored it up and I illustrated it. So we'll give that, I guess. But that was always the first thing that had to be done. It's like all the art kind of that was like the hub of the game, and then everything kind of radiated off of that logo. And I remember the art direction was, don't make it look like a seahorse.
Like an Atari 2600 adventure.
It was Jack Hager's advice or his art direction. Make sure it doesn't look like a seahorse, because it was kind of already, it was leaning in that direction,
Right. But you illustrated the logo, and I think for the first game, or did artwork for the first game, and
I got kicked to the curb after that. So
this was like 1990.
92.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the last few years, You're at the cons and you've had to put a sign over top the logos that says Warner Brothers forbids me to show this artwork.
Yeah, I think I have it
I
here.
think you've talked about it on somebody else's podcast, but I've talked to you about this in person.
Here it is. Yeah.
And we're going to take a look at that sign in a second. Yes. It's like, what the heck are these jokers trying to pull? Because
Unbelievable. Yeah.
this is one of the creators of Mortal Kombat. And then you're doing it to all the Mortal Kombat actors, sending them these cease and desist and showing up at the game cons and handing them these. Like, what the hell is your problem?
Yep.
These are the pioneers of this game, and just because you have the rights to the game now doesn't mean you can disrespect the people who made all this possible. And they were doing that.
Pretty much it. It kind of is, you know. Well, I think they were kind of hoping I was just going to disappear off the planet and stay that way. Because, I mean, I got threatened with a lawsuit if I associated myself with the game in any way, manner, or form. Because the last thing they needed to have happen was a freelancer, you know, this loose cannon running around out in the world going, hey, I made all that stuff. I'm the one that made it, you know, even though it was true. Last thing, you know, they wanted to keep it all under the Midway umbrella. Everything happened here. Nothing happened outside. No loose cannon running around out there claiming artwork is his, even though it was.
So, tell the story. It's like, what? I mean, when it first started, was it Midwest Gaming Classic that somebody walked up to you and or handed you papers, or they just took pictures of you and then handed to you later?
That's pretty close. It did happen in Milwaukee at that show, and what happened was they had a private investigator follow me around, and they took pictures of my booth and of me, and also of and Dan Pacina and Anthony Marquez and a couple other, you know. I wasn't the only one that they took shots at.
Yes.
They shot at all of us. And right after that show, we got cease and desist letters in email.
Right.
And it's funny, because I know I was upset about it, but my lawyer was like, ooh, a cease and desist letter in email, the least official way to deliver anything.
Yeah.
And he was kind of laughing about it, but
I've been livid.
You need to take it seriously, of course, but you know that they approached you in this manner, that they kind of took the tough guy, strong arm approach with an email. It was kind of counter, you know, to the hey, you buddy, you better watch yourself kind of approach.
Yeah.
So I got lucky, and I did something I probably shouldn't have done, and I posted online. Oh yeah, you know, and an IP law firm here in Chicago found me.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we want to represent you pro bono because we want Warner Brothers' head on our wall.
Yeah.
And you seem to be the guy that can make that happen. So how about it? What do you say? And I'm like, sure, it sounds like fun. A lawsuit that I don't have to pay for, the first one ever. This one actually might be fun because none of the lawsuits before that have been fun at all. Okay.
Yeah, I talked about something. Yeah, another YouTube streamer is an IP lawyer having to sue Australia for taking down his videos because copyright strike his intellectual property.
Yeah, with Billy Mitchell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coverage of that. So stupid.
Go figure. Yeah. So what inevitably happened was, I had sent an email, another oh yeah moment, where I laundry listed pretty much everything that I kept from 1992, which was everything.
Yeah.
You know, invoices, purchase orders. I even had interdepartmental memos from, John Tobias saying, hey, make that little box a little bigger and more yellow, than John. I mean, the blueprints, everything, my sketches, the production artwork, everything. I saved it all. So I laundry listed this whole thing, and I sent them an email saying, I've got all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And my lawyers were like, well, we found this email. And the thing there is, you're a grenade to them. They don't dare screw with you because, they pull a pin on that grenade and you show up in court with a literal avalanche of physical evidence from 1992. Who else has that? Nobody. They're going to show up. Right. They're going to show up with lawyers in $3,000 suits, and that don't matter at all. You know? So he said, you, my friend, can do anything you like. Go right ahead. And really, the only thing that we were trying to do was that I could go and do the shows unmolested and not have to worry about somebody coming over and serving me with papers or cease and desist or insisting that, well, something or who knows. After all these years, just leave me the hell alone. What
was the motive?
Yeah.
What was the motive for them doing this?
Unknown. You would think that they'd want, and it isn't just about me. Dan, oh my God, the attacks they've made on Dan Pesina makes
brothers.
Oh yeah, makes my incident with them seem like a little wrist slapping. They made his life miserable. So
yeah, I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. You would think that they would have embraced us. I mean, we're the originals. We created this, this amazing thing that the world loves. You would think that they'd want to, and this is the thing too. It's Warner Brothers now. It's none of the originals. No, nobody was. It's not like they've got some personal vendetta that goes back to the old Midway days. That doesn't even exist anymore. So what is their problem?
Yeah, and I wondered how many other MK actors got served. I know several still live in the Chicago area. John Parrish, for example. Carrie Ann Hoskins, I think, is still in the area. And I do want to mention she posted. Yeah, a little sad news out of her camp. One of her sons passed away a few days ago, and
so sad.
It's the twin sons who had cerebral palsy, and that's been a family burden for. That's what she's had to deal with for so many years.
20 odd years, definitely.
That'd been Zachary, by the way.
Yeah. My heart goes out to her, and I hope if she's watching this, then my sincere condolences to you, Carrie. Truly,
yes,
you're in my prayers.
Anyway, it's sad loss for her. Although Zach is no longer in pain.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah.
But he has been active lately, so
yeah.
appearing in a pinball machine recently.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Is almost everybody that was involved in those games are still here in Chicago. Dan and Carlos Pesina, they're here. Rich DeVizio lives 15 minutes from me here in Orland Park. Been over to his house a bunch of times. Leah, everybody. Yeah. Caitlin lives here. Everybody's still here in Chicago for the most part. Liz Molecular lives out in Arizona. Whenever we do shows out in the West, we see her. That's nice. We get together with her. But I
wondered what the story was between her losing the role of Sonya Blade and Carrie Ann getting it.
Okay. That was pretty much just kicking all the originals to the curb.
Really?
I was the first one that was kicked to the curb. And after MK2, all the originals were kicked to the curb too. They were all promised a contract that was going to give them residual money, but the opposite happened. It actually cut them out of it, and they were done after MK2. And that's when they started coming after Dan for, as insane as it is, for having the appearance of Johnny Cage. You look like Johnny Cage.
Really?
Yeah.
You're born a certain way. And it's like,
it sounds stupid.
What do you want? Like him to get plastic surgery to alter his birth appearance?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just like, yeah, they took him to court for making.
I'd like get the names
Johnny
of the
Cage.
people who filed the lawsuits and put them on blast and make them a laughing stock of the entire gaming world, and then they won't dare show their face in public ever again.
Oh, it gets even weirder. But Dan lost his first round in court, and it turns out that there were probably some bribes involved and some other things. Oh, it got really, really weird. And
what are they expecting to do? Get surgery, plastic surgery?
They just wanted
maybe I got to reach out to him and get him on my pod.
They just wanted him to go away. You know, and that was a thing too. I mean, that's why they threatened me with a lawsuit. Just go away. Okay? I mean, that's why I kicked everybody to the curb. You know, and Liz was gone, and then they brought on Carrie. So,
although Rich DeVizio seemed to make it his way back.
Well, you know, he was the only one that kind of kept contact with John Tobias. You know, they were childhood friends. I'm going to tell you how the real origin of Mortal Kombat, and I got this from the mouth of Carlos Pacina at dinner one night. When they were 10 years old, Carlos and John Tobias and Rich DeVizio were all best friends. And they had taken some martial arts classes. They're all jazzed about it, and they wanted to make a kung fu movie. And that's all I could talk about was a kung fu movie they were going to make. And they'd run home after martial arts and sit at the Pacina's kitchen table and design characters for their kung fu movie. And the kung fu movie became Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Okay? Yeah, that is the origin of Mortal Kombat at the Pacina's kitchen table when they were 10 years old. So
the development of Mortal Kombat actually was a lot longer, kind of like Ghost Dark Presence.
Yeah. And ironically, I at the same time, now this is 10 years before, and I'm now it's be 1982, and I'm a Bally, and I'm drawing all sorts of cool dragons that for games like Satan's Hollow, and then later on for a game called Demons and Dragons that never got made, but I ended up designing a bunch of dragons, which are suspiciously similar to the Mortal Kombat dragon 10 years earlier. So it's all, they all got their origin. And I really didn't even notice that until I started digging out some old artwork when I was working on Satan's Hollow. I started digging out all some of those old sketches from the 80s. And sure enough, there were all those dragons, you know. And they definitely look pretty close to the Mortal Kombat dragons.
That wasn't the only artwork that was in dispute. Years before that, the artwork for Pac-Man Plus, you designed a Pac-Man character, and it ended up being used for Hanna-Barbera's version of Pac-Man.
Saturday morning.
Pac-Land.
Here, let me get that guy up here. This guy. Here. These cats right there.
I saw that, and I saw the resemblance, and it's like, where's his hat?
Yeah, right. Put the hat on, and that's the funny thing too is whenever I talk about this at a convention, and I'll say that, and never fails. There's always somebody that at the table, you know, they're talking, they'll get their phone out.
Well, the color of the gloves.
They want to look what the character looks like, because they're assuming, well, it's probably similar, or it's maybe a little close. And they pull it up and they're going, oh my God, it's identical. It's like they didn't change a line, not a thing about it. They just popped a hat on it.
Pop the hat and change the color of the gloves.
Yeah.
Or the boots, one or the other. And,
and just the fact that it had those gloves and the boots. Here's what happened when I designed it. Pac-Man Plus came right on the heels of Super Pac-Man.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I'm doing another Pac-Man game. Point of interest. I was probably, I'm guessing 99.9% sure that I was the first one to ever illustrate the Pac-Man alphabet.
The font.
The font, yes.
Yes.
Because we needed the words. We needed the words.
Exciting new.
Exciting
and plus.
New. Right. And plus. So at that point, Paul Ferris was like, just make the whole damn alphabet. Get it over with.
Well, the other thing is the Hanna-Barbera, the cartoon had the entire font. I guess.
Yeah, so
I don't know if you gave it to them or if they did it.
They probably, I don't know. Who knows? But I know that I did, I did make the original, and I did an entire alphabet, so that we actually had it. So anyway, while that was all going on, there was an edict from the powers that be up in the ivory tower that they were all bent out of shape, that a couple of us have been signing the artwork or sneaking our initials into it. And
that's another thing. Why are they? And it was kind of like this thing with Atari and the formation of Activision disputes over crediting the games.
Right. The artists had no rights to sign the artwork or even be acknowledged that they did the artwork. That they just want to keep it all
did the coding for that matter.
Right.
Why is the question?
Well, I don't know why, but it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm gonna be honest, I would not even have thought to have done that on the game by sneaking my initials into it if they had not said don't do it. I didn't even have thought of it until then. And the way they said it, it was just like, you better not do it. You better not. Don't even think about it. Well, it's like telling 12-year-olds, remember? You told the 12-year-old not to do something. What's the 12-year-old going to do? That's the first thing the 12-year-old's going to do. So that's what
Rebel.
I did. Yeah, I mean, I was defiant. It made me mad. It just made me mad that they were so arrogant about it. And I thought, fine, F you, And so I stuck my initials in there. And the thing is, I was so good at it that the thing was, it had to go to production. Once it got to the production, then it was like written in stone. It couldn't go backwards. It was just too costly. So they had to live with it.
I mean, they can do revisions of the marquees and stuff. I thought you'd put your initials on this thing, but I couldn't find it.
There was no place to hide it. Don't think I didn't think about it. But there was no place to. Yeah, this one, all kinds of places to hide it. And boy, did I ever! I hit it right in his little elbow there. I put PEN, and for 30 years Namco missed it. And then all of a sudden
Well, you're out of the company by then too, so.
A zillion years, long gone by that time. Yeah, absolutely. But I have noticed when I see Pac-Man Plus in arcades, I can tell when that game was made because whether it has my initials on it or not. Because only up until about 10 years ago, they all had my initials on it, and then somebody at Namco went, "Hey, what's this here?"
Well, all things considered, Pac-Man Plus was an unauthorized modification. They threw a fit up while they accepted Ms. Pac-Man as part of the family. They got a little antsy when Junior Pac-Man was released, and it was like
Baby Pac-Man and all the other spin-offs. Well, that's how I got involved with doing Super Pac-Man in the first place. Was nobody wanted to do the spin-off of a spin-off.
Right.
because Ms. Pac-Man was the very first spin-off game ever in the history of ever. And then, so now, Super Pac-Man's the spin-off game of the spin-off game. Nobody wanted to do that. I was the low man on the totem pole. I'm like, no, pick me. And I didn't do anything to get noticed. And quite honestly, when I did that, I pretty much thought to myself, oh, this game's going to be on the trash heap in 5 minutes, but who cares? All I wanted to do was get the attention of my boss, Paul Ferris. That's really all I gave a damn about. Was I wanted to, I was ambitious. I wanted to move up in the art department.
Well, and ironically, this Pac-Man is like the rights to it is owned by not by Namco, but currently AT Games, which makes the I think the arcade one-ups or the arcade legends.
Oh no! Oh really?
And so you have this so-called stand-in character called Pac-Mom.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Well, okay. Do you remember we had a Pac-Man arcade one in that in the McLean condo?
Yeah.
Remember last year? We had one up. You remember we were playing it in the. Yeah,
or a Pac-Man. I'm not sure.
The arcade
Memory's a little fuzzy.
Little mini, So okay, what we're talking about, arcade one, the Mortal Kombat version. Have you ever noticed that it has only my dragon on the side and no flying cake Johnny Cage? Yeah, and they made up some bullshit story about licensing, which was a bullshit. It wasn't about licensing at all. It was spite. It was all done out of spite. That was to punish him for winning his lawsuit against them. The second time he went into court, the judge threw it out. Pretty much was like, took a look at it and went, wait a minute, you're here because, and remember, this is an appeal. Okay?
Yes.
So he's appealing it, and he said, you're here because you look like Johnny Cage and they don't want you to?
And you're the actual actor.
Yeah.
Digitized for this.
Yeah. Out the door it went.
Yes.
Boom. That was the end, and he threw it out. Okay, and justice was done. It took him a long time. It took a ton of money, but Danny got justice finally. Yeah.
Well, I hope he got compensated too for that.
No.
They should have, because if you're gonna do that crap, you gotta need to.
Okay, I mean, I was battling with Warner Brothers for 2 long years with the IP firm, and they told me from the beginning, this is not about money. It'll never be about money. Don't count on seeing any money from this. This is all about prestige. This is all about being able to go out and make appearances unmolested, tell your stories, don't have to worry about editing anything.
Right.
Be your true self. That's really what that was all about.
They were throwing a fit about not having control of everything.
Oh.
That was what their issue was.
The bigger the fame and the fortune gets, the smaller the thinking.
Yeah.
Always. And this boy, you couldn't get any bigger with Mortal Kombat, and boy, they saw right away. They had to keep that under their wing. And the first thing to do was get rid of that freelancer guy that made all that artwork, because he's not part of this.
That we're using that they didn't make. Yeah.
That bum.
Speaking of circling back to Pac-Man, ironically, they put the hat on there and they didn't credit you for, I guess, the original artwork. Yeah. And then it ended up being reused in the arcade game side-scroller Pac-Land.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that too.
You forgot? I told you this once.
No, you did. No, you did. When you just said it just now, I just remembered you did tell me that. You told me that on a show once. And I remember we Googled it and looked it up, and I went, "You gotta be kidding me!" I didn't
know that. I gotta throw this up there because this actually also served as inspiration to Super Mario Brothers eventually too. Here we go. Yes. Yeah, and that's on the arcade floor at Galvin Ghost, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, I played this game and I got hung up on the springboard where you have to jump a lake. And it's like,
That,
okay, I hit the edge, hit the jump, I jump real high, and then I somehow go splat into the lake. It's like, how are these other people getting across? And I
yeah,
can't. And it's like, I have to tap the directional button after making the jump to float across. I didn't know that. There's no instruction on that. And it's like,
okay, so I got a story about this character. When I did Super Pac-Man, they had faxed over the image, and then, of course, I got all crappy because it was faxed, so I had to re-illustrate it. So when I started doing Pac-Man Plus, I remember going into Paul's office and saying, "So, did they send over a Pac-Man for us to use? Because there's no defined, designated Pac-Man character, which is just crazy to me. That's never been, official. There's no official Pac-Man character. He's got like 15 different versions of him running around out there. Okay, so Pac-Man Plus. Paul says to me, just make one up. And I went, wait a minute, wait. That's all funny, but really, seriously, what Pac-Man are we using? And with like just as serious as a heart attack, he looked at me in the eye and he goes, I'm going to tell you what they told me. Make one up. Okay? I went, oh, really? Okay. All right. So my first version was pretty much exactly, this guy here, except that he had little like Mickey Mouse gloves and balloon feet,
right.
and legal went out of their minds. They're like, oh my God, the mouse is going to sue us into the Stone Age,
Well, they were so the makers of Cuphead.
Yeah. So it came back, and I had to change the shoes and the gloves. So I did, and in the art department amongst us, this version became known as the
Hang on, let me get this wide and keep a
yeah.
solo layout. There we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
This version of Pac-Man became known as the biker boot welding glove Pac-Man. Okay. and he kept the biker boots and the welding gloves after that. And the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, he got there he is, got his biker boots and his welding gloves.
And he floats across here, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the appearances of the enemies or the ghosts here are of the cartoon counterparts.
Yes, yeah.
And they have the theme song running through. So from the cartoon playing on this. Of course, the Japanese version didn't have this appearance of Pac. They had basically the kind of the black eyes, kind of the black cross eyes look, although kind of almost the same appearance, except for the eyes and the mouth.
I'll tell you, I absolutely adore playing some of those one-off Japanese games. They had a whole arcade of them at Free Pay, Florida, a couple of years ago, and I was just addicted. The after party show, I had planned on going to catch the band, and I'm just going to play a few games here. And before I knew it, okay, we're closing the place down. You got to go home. What? Yeah, I played for hours. I was just there.
Yeah.
Time flew by. Did not even know. Yeah, some really, really fascinating, fun Japanese games, and they're all in one-off cabinets, unique, crazy cabinets. Very fun. That was very
kind
fun.
of like Galvin Ghost. It's like you need
what a great place.
More than a day to get the full effect. I typically tell people you need 2 days minimum.
Easily, and even that's still just kind of running down the rows. And if you've got a handful of favorite games, I'd say better plan on spending an entire weekend there, because what are there, over 750 games on the floor? Oh, now
1,000 44.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
And-
since you opened up the new gallery, what am I thinking about? That was the old number. 1,044 games on the.
Well, that's the current count.
Yeah.
They're only going to unveil about 5 more games or 5 or 6 more games. They're going to stop at 1,050 because they're out of space. Then it shifts to the Vault series.
He has every game I ever worked on, including a couple of generic games that I had forgotten I had done the artwork on. That I was just tooling around through the Galloping Ghost one day and looked down at this and went, "Hey, I know that artwork." And all of a sudden I realized, yeah, I did that artwork. Oh my God.
Which game was that one?
No, it was a generic a control panel artwork, and I've seen it in like a bunch of different colors. Like I did the hand separations, but we never designated any of the colors for the separations. So pretty much anytime they wanted to print it up, they could call out completely different colors, and hopefully, even though it was the exact same design, it would look completely different. And that was.
But it's not for a particular game.
No, no. The idea was that it would be adaptable for any game, every game that so that they didn't have to waste money on new artwork for a control panel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. That was at the end. That was at the very end when and that was the funny thing too is they started using the universal cabinet. Tapper was the very first one that had the universal cabinet on it, but they had to be able to put the little brass things on for the bar with Tapper, so it had to be adaptable. But so that's why Wacko was so weird, was because it really went against the grain of the company policy. At the time, the company was totally into making universal cabinet, one cabinet for all the games, and then comes Wacko, which is just as twisted, which is Wacko. Yeah. So that there was a lot of weird paradoxes going on over at Bally Midway on a pretty regular basis.
Speaking of Tapper, so the character on that one ended up in 2 other games. I don't know if it's the same character or if it's just like him.
Yeah,
Timber and Domino Man.
Right. Yeah, and by default, my artwork is on all of those too. I did all the wood grain on those, so that wood grain was used on all the games. So
I did a April Fool's prank about Tapper. Yeah, I kind of touched. Wokeism was the thing, and there was people trying to find a way to fight back against the woke. And Budweiser partnered with a controversial social influencer, so they decided to target Budweiser. So I came up with a joke where arcade operators replaced their tappers with root beer tapper to join in the boycott.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is everybody thinks that root beer tapper came first, and then beer tapper.
I thought it was the other way around, personally.
It was the other way around. Yeah, it was the other way around. Because Budweiser came to Bally Midway, and they were like, hey, we want to specifically make a game that goes in bars.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, cool, we're all for it. And we'll make a cocktail version, and a cocktail. It's going in a bar. It's a cocktail.
Right.
So, they were all over that. It was a series of hate mail, of course.
Right.
That's always like, hey, we got hate mail about Pac-Man, for God's sake. Can you believe it? Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, I know.
How do you think? Where do you think Professor Pac-Man came from? That was a knee-jerk reaction to hate mail about Pac-Man. They were worried about, moms were worried that Pac-Man was turning their kids' heads into mush. And had no idea what the hell they were talking about.
Boy, they had no idea.
Yeah.
And so if they had today's games back then, their heads would have exploded.
Oh, yeah. They had no idea that they were, teaching
They
them
had it
hand-eye
easy.
coordination, and everything good was coming out of them, but nobody saw it. You know, anything the kids are liking and having fun with must be bad, right?
They complained about pinball back then too, and then they
How
were
about it? Hey, for a while,
banning
pinball was
pinball and
illegal.
destroying machines.
Yeah. Yeah, really. You're right. I mean, you can look it up. There's pictures of them taking sledgehammers to pinball machines because people were betting on them in bars. So it's just like, don't blame the
Yeah.
machine. The machine isn't the problem. So, yeah, pretty crazy.
We're past 10 o'clock, so let me
Oh,
get through the last few questions here,
sure.
and then
Wow.
we can go as long as I want, as long as we want to go. But I want to get these in before we get away.
Sure. Yeah.
You're associated with several games. Is there? What were some of the games that you were associated with that did not come out?
Oh
You
boy.
mentioned Demons and Dragons, which
Yeah. Demons and
I don't know
Dragons.
if there's a proto for that, or
Um. Yeah, I started doing artwork. I remember I was all excited because I just got done with Satan's Hollow, and I got a finish up story about Satan's Hollow too. So after the game came out, game comes out, and of course Satan's Hollow. So it's drawn huge fires. It's got a target on its back from day one, and so one day I'm at my desk working, and Paul Ferris comes over. And he's got a handful of letters, and he just tosses them out on my desk. And he's got kind of an attitude, and he's going, "Well, I hope you're happy." He goes, "You've made the big time. You have hate mail."
Did they even know who you were back then? Because they
Right.
want your initials in the artwork.
So, and the way, and of course, and he's saying it like he's just screwing with me because he was a fun guy, but he would definitely screw with you. So I'm thinking, am I getting fired? What is this? And he starts laughing, and he's going, "You got to read some of them. They're something else." And they were. I mean, there was all you're going to hell, for dragging everybody down with you. How dare you making this evil artwork and blah blah blah. Unbelievable. So I thought that was pretty funny that he goes, "Yeah, you made the big time, baby. You have hate mail." Okay, so hot on the heels of Satan's Hollow comes Demons and Dragons. And I get that one, and I'm thinking, well, I must have done a good job on Satan's Hollow. I'm working on Demons and Dragons now.
Like this is the proposed sequel or something.
Yeah, kind of, almost, And the heat must have got a little bit too much because I was about halfway done with the game, and I was working on the header art, and I remember Paul Ferris coming over to my desk, and he just looked at me and he went, "Stop." It's like,
the game is canceled. We're not doing it.
Yeah, there wasn't even any reason given, or anything. Just like, stop, just stop working on it. Right, just stop. I said, so just the header. He goes, everything, just stop. And he turned around and walked away. And I can tell. I'm guessing he probably went up there and fought for it and lost that battle because he was not happy about the situation. But who knows what really happened.
Was any work done on the
Well,
game
that place is
itself,
interesting.
coding?
It was best place I've ever worked by far.
Right.
By far. No.
But you don't know if
I miss it. That's for sure.
Any coding was done on this game.
Great dynamic. Working with all those incredibly talented people, and you could take your sketches and go over talk to Margaret Hudson and say, "Hey, Margaret, what do you think of this? Is this cool? Do you like this? Yeah, maybe make this a little different. Oh, that's a great idea." Or Pat McMahon, "Hey, I'm doing this cartoon character. What do you think? He's a cartoon character. I gotta tell you, my cartoon characters. My biggest influence are Jack Davis from Mad Magazine and Pat McMahon. That's. I kind of combine those two. That's probably my cartoon style. But I learned so much from Pat McMahon. What an incredible talent. So,
is there? I did ask if any coding was done on this game. I want to make sure my mic is still working here.
Yeah.
I still hear it in the headphones, but this is still a battery. So, is there any other prototypes that you worked on that never made it out the door?
Not that I can think of. No, Demons and Dragons was the only one that didn't actually make it.
Okay.
Yeah, everything else was pretty much dead on, and again, it was always like, beat the clock, always beat the clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you any good at the games that you create? That all the games that you made, are you good at playing these games?
No, I suck out loud.
Ah!
Oh my God, I'm terrible. That's why it was just so amazing that when I actually got to play Midnight Marauders at Galloping Ghost, I didn't expect anything, because I'm usually pretty shitty at these games. I mean, in spite of doing the artwork on Satan's Howl just kicks my ass. All 40 years I've been trying to beat that game. Not me. Ain't gonna be
Yeah.
me.
Join the club. I'm not that good at it either.
Right. So when I got over 1 million points on Midnight Marauders first try, I was like, drop the mic. I'm done. I'm never
out of the box score. You kicked it.
My one and only time. The only time I've ever played the game. I did the artwork on 42 years before.
Or 42 years after the fact.
Yeah.
First play out of the box.
And actually the header, the original header that I had designed for it had the word Marauder, like midnight was carved out of like the side of a ship, and then the word Marauders was in blood, like it was floating in space, like it was suspended in zero gravity. And for 1982, they were like, "You are not making letters out of blood." It took another 10 years before Mortal Kombat came along and said, we could get start
the mold.
Yeah, but 1982, I ain't having it. Not having it.
Speaking of Mortal Kombat, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think I heard in one of your past interviews, was supposedly going to play Johnny Cage in the original Mortal Kombat. That fell through. Ironically, he's in the most recent Mortal Kombat as a skin swap.
Yeah, that's why. Because of and it all started out in that Ed Boon had wanted to make a Jean-Claude Van Damme game. Okay, and they kind of yanked the rug out from under him on that, and they went no. But I think at that point, somebody up in management probably went, "Hey, Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's pretty popular right now. Boy, that game would not, that wouldn't have to do anything for that game. That game would just sell itself with Jean-Claude Van Damme on board. Let's make him Johnny Cage. We'll just segue that into this new Dragon Attack, which is what they were calling it at the time.
Working title.
Yeah. And we'll just segue that into, and it will make him Johnny Cage. And there you go. But that fell apart. He wanted way too much, and they were cheap asses, and they were never going to meet on that. So that's literally how I got involved with the whole thing. At that point, they went, screw this. We're not going to throw any more time or money at this stinker of a game. They thought it was going to flop. Mortal Kombat. Keep in mind, we're talking about Mortal Kombat. They thought it was going to flop.
And it's in the aftermath, and it's in the shadow of Street Fighter, which was all the rage at the time, or Street Fighter 2.
Right,
Street Fighter wasn't as popular.
Right, and Street Fighter 2. This and that was their motivation for actually making the game in the first place. In fact, when I showed up, they told me, well, that was the thing. They didn't waste any more time on a staff artist. They told Greg, hey, hire some freelance. Who's the fastest gun in the West? Well, I was the fastest gun in the West. I had freelanced about 8 years by that time, and been in the business 12.
Yeah.
So, I could do it in my sleep, and
right.
And so that's why they brought me on board, because they didn't really care what it looked like. I mean, they wanted it good, obviously, but they were more interested in getting it done fast. The question, the question was always, is it done yet? When will it be done? How come it's not done yet? Never, hey, let's see those dragons. How's that working out? The only one that cared about it was Jack Hager. But only, and I shared with him only because it was kind of like artist to artist. We had a rapport, and I wanted it right, and I wanted his opinion, and he was, the head honcho on the whole thing. He kind of had the overview of the whole game. But other than that, they didn't give a flying damn what it looked like. They just wanted it done and out of their lives. That's why they only made 200 games. Again, the 200 games. They made 200 games. That was it. That tells you right there. They had no faith in Mortal Kombat at all. Nothing. Crazy, huh?
And they were freaking out. Again, I didn't look over here and see Data East wanting to stop development on Tattoo Assassins, which was a ripoff of Mortal Kombat. And now, ironically, they're going to do an official release of Tattoo Assassin on the Arcadia hardware in the near future.
Why not? Sure, because it can. Okay, look at Hollywood. They don't have an original idea to save their lives.
Yeah,
keep rehashing every IP. Ugh.
Yeah, and butchering it and making it not watchable, and yeah, there's a whole host of problems. But they're kind of getting their comeuppance right now. So yeah, we're gonna kind of wind this down a little bit. I didn't even get to.
I gotta get up in the morning and go do stuff. So sure.
There's other.
I'm an old guy. I need my sleep.
So do I. I did talk. I wrote down Eagle Games, which is, I guess, a recent firm you're with. You were associated with a haunted house. You illustrate for games on the personal computer and the Nintendo Switch. I think it's your current exploits. Haunted house is surprising.
Well, thanks. I love the road. I was made for the road. I really was. I was in a rock band for a while. That I was a drummer. And played on the road every once. I loved it, but now I don't have to carry all that stupid equipment around with me.
Yeah,
just show up with a
You just have to lug your display to every con and set all that up and all your artwork on a table.
Beats the hell out of a drum kit. I did that for 20 years. I know, believe me.
You play drums?
Yeah, I play drums. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any future cons, future goals, or future appearances that you want to plug?
I will be in Davenport at the end of this month, and then I will be at VGS. That's a Video Game Summit. The weekend after 4th of July, whenever that is.
It's July the 12th, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
I will not be there, unfortunately. In fact, I need to add that to my my slideshow and plug that thing because I kind of forgot about it. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Oh, okay. Doug Watson will be there. In fact, he's flying in. He's staying at my house. So, yeah. Like I said, we've been really good friends ever since 1982.
Any future goals that you have left that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, actually, I've been working with a group on designing a very large theme park for like the last 5 years. I've been doing this very kind of a clandestine project. But it's definitely coming together, and I want to say more about it, but I can't.
It's in development. That's that way.
Yeah, it's a lot of NDA things happening on, but it's a theme park. It's huge, and it's going. I can tell you that it is from the ground up. We're designing it to be completely green. It'll have like gray water reclamation. It will have sod roofs. It will have solar panels. It will be completely self-sustained. All of the fish in the restaurants that there will be raised on the property. it's a very cool and progressive idea. Really excited about it. I've designed a number of rides. I've designed a couple of pavilions. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've just had just a great time doing this. So, I hope it happens. Okay, I spent a lot of time.
I hope it turns out good too. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
other thing.
Well, we're talking about. I guess I can say we're looking at a couple of pieces of property, right on the Wisconsin-Illinois border,
Mhm.
and both Illinois and Wisconsin have gotten very interested in it. We've had a number of meetings with their tourism department, and they're both looking to throw some very serious money at this project very, very soon. So I'm hoping that it does come to fruition and we build this beautiful resort that will draw people from Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, and the idea is to stick it to the Dells.
Stick it to the Dells or
Stick it
Six
to them,
Flags.
man. Yeah, because basically they have so much convention business and the water park business, and everybody that's going there is coming from Chicago, Madison, and Milwaukee. Hey, how about if we build a place that pulls those people in only a whole lot instead of a 4-hour drive? How about an hour and a half drive? That works a whole lot better. And here's the beauty of it too. People that want to go to like a Disney style, Universal style resort, that's the level we're talking about here. That's the size. We'll have all those amenities, but right here in Chicago. And the beauty of it is 60% of all of the business in Disney in Florida comes from Chicago. 60% of all of it is from Chicago. And that's why Chicago is the only city that is allowed to use Disney characters in their Thanksgiving parade. Do you know that?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a Chicago parade. So
Disney characters are only allowed in the Chicago Thanksgiving Day parade because of that, because there's 60% of the business in Florida comes from Chicago.
I kind of think
So
there's been this exodus out of Illinois. Going to Florida, Tennessee, who knows where else, that for kind of lower taxes or no state income tax, for instance. And
Tennessee, there you go. Yeah, that'd be the place. Nevada, no state income tax. Yeah,
I'm thinking Tennessee when I retire.
Yeah, I'm talking about that too. But for a theme park, I think that this is a perfect place. It's got an incredible, 3 huge city populations, within an hour and a half drive of it, of those locations. Yeah. So keep an eye on it. It's called Wild.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Wild Theme Park by Paul Niemeyer and friends.
Yeah.
What's your website if you have one?
That yet. Like again, a lot of NDA happening right now.
No, your personal business website.
My personal.
Yes.
No, I don't have one either. I should. Yeah, actually, that's something I was just talking to somebody about today. Actually, all my stuff is on Facebook, pretty much. Just scale through all the stuff on there. I post.
Should have had that on
Facebook.
Had that as a banner.
Yeah.
I'll get that up before I get out of here.
Laundry list. Yeah, all the games are laundry listed on the banner.
Here we go. I'm gonna copy this, throw this up here. My Cody is licking my feet right now. Good grief.
There he is. Yeah, I know that guy.
Cody, quit licking my feet, goofball. I have this ginger and he crashed the stream. He crashed it at the end. Now he's on my lap and now he's licking my feet because I'm not wearing socks at the moment. And he bites too, and that's the other thing.
Well, but good thing you have them. We just lost a dog, so it's they may be annoying, but boy, when they're not there, you really miss them.
All right, go to facebook.com/Paul E. Niemeyer 2025 and some of your stuff is there to take a
Oh, all
look
kinds
at.
of stuff. I sculpt a lot. Do a lot of sculptures for theme parks and escape rooms and haunted
Yeah,
attractions, all kinds of stuff. You name it, I do it.
you have a Super Pac-Man sculpture. I think
Yeah,
it's 3D
yeah.
printed.
I'll be dragging him out to Davenport, and also he'll be at VGS, and then he gets shipped out to Pittsburgh to the guy that commissioned that sculpt, and then he will be bringing it and also the sculpt I did of Professor Pac-Man, which is about the same size. They're both 4 feet tall, and he's bringing both of those sculpts to PGX, Pittsburgh Gaming Expo, and that's in October. So
John Riggs wants Professor Pac-Man to show up at Galvin Ghost Arcade.
yeah,
I don't know if they have one in the vaults, but
yeah. So on that note, sign off here, and
I hope to see you around the arcade soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in. I know it went a little long, but
you're well under the record. Brandon Travis, King Cam Blackman, holds the record for longest podcast guest at 3 hours and 40 minutes.
I thought it would have been Brian.
No.
He hold his own.
King Cam has we went 3 hours 40 minutes. That's the record. And it was very early on this series.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, I'm not
Time
going
flies
to that.
when you're having fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah, how about it? So we never even mentioned Jurassic Park here. I got my little dinosaur.
Yes, I had to
next
throw
time,
that up.
Next time.
We'll see. Well, hopefully we'll have you back
that'd be great.
Sometime in the near future. We'll have to figure out what to talk about too.
All
right. Paul Niemeyer, one of the legends of the industry, a member of the Midway Monsters.
Midway Monsters. We are Midway Monsters, that is for sure. Here we got a picture of the lunkheads. Here we are.
Take a look at that. There it is. Tim Keithrow, Brian Cullen, you, and one other person.
It's Carlos Pacina.
Oh, okay.
Tim Kitzrow, Dan Pacina, and me.
Okay. Yeah. So I gotta get Tim on here to complete the trifecta.
Yeah. Oh, he's so much fun. He is like hanging out with Robin Williams. He really is. He's fun 24/7. He's constantly on. So
all right,
brother. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you for being fans. God knows without you, it'd just be a bunch of dragon art.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thanks.
All right. That was Paul Niemeyer. And I have a little bit of stuff to mention in the back end of this podcast. Now, let me remove this. Stop screen. Re-add this. Share screen. I got to throw the slideshow presentation back up. And move on to the next slide. This weekend, and by the way, we talked about Mortal Kombat during this. Yes, Mortal Kombat 11 is a part of this. Bloody Wars Tournament Fight Fest weekend event starting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Mortal Kombat 11 and on Ogden Avenue in Brookfield, Illinois. Saturday, Street Fighter 6 at 1 o'clock. And then Sunday, the 22nd at 1 o'clock, Tekken 8. Unfortunately, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be attending a wrestling show and running the sound for them on Saturday, so I can't run up there. Otherwise, I might have entered, although I think Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 would have been probably the games I would be able to play. I did mention winners and losers. They acquired Wacko as the newest game for their arcade floor. They are taking auditions for the taping of Arcade Animals to happen next month. There's the hotline number, way cool, 485. Call the number. Leave your best promo as to why you should be a contestant. You might be picked. Who knows? Or they just may use some promo like they used mine. And here we go. Missouri Game Con 9, July 26, 2025, from 10 to 6 in Manchester, Missouri. I got to throw the graphic of the Midwest Gaming's or the Video Game Summit. I forget. Dead Echo Valley, yeah, I'm going to get that covered next week. I'll get that graphic in the rotation. You deserve to get that coverage. I've been there a number of years, but I can't make it this year. T20, August 8th through the 10th. This is the big tournament every year at the Galloping Ghost Arcade. You register now at Galloping Ghost Reproductions. $50 entry fee. That's a 3-day pass. Equivalent to a 3-day pass. So you play in the tournament, go to the arcade Friday or Saturday or Sunday, and there's cash prizes on the line and a championship belt. $500 first prize and the championship belt, $250 for second, $100 for third. I don't know if they're going to do a side tournament. They didn't do a side tournament last year. They may change how T20 is this year because one person's won 9 out of the 10 T20s. I'm the only one. I'm the 1 out of 10 that has won a T20 tournament. Shock, shock. Yes, I may have had a smaller field to compete against, but the record books do not care. I am a T20 champion, former T20 champion in 2020. So, but this, if you do this tournament, sign up for this tournament. It's the biggest retro arcade tournament that you're going to find in the entire United States. There's not too many retro arcade tournaments going on these days. And you don't know what you're going to play. They may unveil 20 games that are not on the Galloping Ghost arcade floor, like they did last year, but they unveiled 21 new games that were not on the arcade floor. So no one has an advantage unless you were previously familiar with the game. Arcade Wars is still a thing, believe it or not. June 2025, the game of the month is Galaxian. I did not update this graphic. The Garcade has fully qualified, so 3 scores have been aired, but it's Underground Retrocade versus Garcade. This tournament was run by One Up Arcade in Australia. That arcade is closed. They put their arcade collection up for sale, but they're still running this. So Galloping Ghost has put all their focus on the challenge card. So, and the chase for tokens, I updated this. Nothing's really changed. As is the power rankings for June. Yes, 2 months ago. And then we're going to talk about the next gamer of the year. And who's going to be the most likely gamer of the year choice? Don't know. Doc Mac's got to have a hard decision, I think, this year, unless he truly believes the winner of T20 should also be the gamer of the year, which is what he went with last year and gave Justin Bithell back-to-back titles. As right now, yeah, this has not changed. It looks to be Andrew and Ben Falls and whoever wins T20 as the top 3 contenders. There's a possibility someone else gets it or nobody gets it. There's no true frontrunner right now. I think it was harder to determine this year than last year, personally. Next week, Lindsay Lowers will be my guest on the pod. And we're going to talk about parenting and gaming on the podcast. She has a YouTube channel, L Cool Games on YouTube. Believe it or not, I ran into her at Midwest Gaming Classic, so we'll talk about Midwest Gaming Classic through some of this. But she ran a panel on parenting and gaming, and there's a lot more that she has um, to talk about in the gaming scene that we may not see on the surface, at least on her YouTube channel. So tune in for that. That'll be next week on June 26th, 9 p.m. is 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And that will do it for the Crimeycade podcast. There's one other item I did not mention. Jacksonville got hit. We had a lot of tornadoes rumble through yesterday in central Illinois. Somebody who is an arcade collector and restorer actually captured footage of a tornado that went through very close to his shop. And it destroyed the a sports complex of baseball diamonds and stuff, and it's like the Champions sports complex in Jacksonville. Like if that tornado formed and shifted a few feet a different direction, his shop would have been wiped out, and a lot of games would have been lost. I did not mention this earlier, and I also want to mention this before I get out of here. Best wishes to Secret headquarters in Evansville, Indiana. Gosh, I forgot to throw this up here. Secret headquarters in Evansville had a flood, and they have an arcade game in their shop. They also have comics and gaming paraphernalia for sale. They lost 80% of their inventory. Their arcade games were ruined by about knee-deep water. Best wishes to them. That was water and electronics do not mix. And one of the most devastating things for an arcade owner is to have their arcade get water. And I don't wish this upon anyone. And there's some, while there weren't any rarities in there, there's a lot of games that you see all over the place. But there was some Mortal Kombat in there, yes. Miss Pac-Man, Class of 87, Class of 81. Yeah, some games were ruined, and they're having to dry out. So, best wishes to them. Hopefully, they can get back to business, maybe recover some of their games and stuff. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the Crimeycade podcast. I am the mad conservative crime fighter, Stephen Lucas, former Gamer of the Year. Thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. Certainly, Living 80s AC was the most active chatter in the comments. And thank you for joining us. And hope to see you around the arcade soon. And hope to see you around next week. And have a good night, everybody.